Jimmy High Roller making a video about the W? Man, we are in different times.
Some athletes are good. Some athletes are great. But very rarely does an athlete make such an impact that they begin to transcend their sport. You know, those times where an athlete is creating so much buzz that people who don't even follow the sport know their name. These athletes hardly ever come around. But when they do, you know something special is going on. Growing up, I used to skate, so of course I know who Tony Hawk is. But my mom also knows who Tony Hawk is. Right. In a sport that tends to only retain the most die-hard fans, Usain Bolt was so incredible that he became a household name. And it also helped that his name sounds like he was destined to be the fastest man of all time. Ask the average person to name any golfer, and they'll instantly say Tiger Woods, followed by no one else. There are very few athletes that reach this level of popularity, where they almost single-handedly lift their sport to new heights. And right now, women's basketball is home to an athlete that may just be next in line to be one of these transcendent athletes. Caitlin Clark has only been in the WNBA for one season, and she is already the face of the league.
That statement right there alone is going to anger some people. All of this is just so interesting to me because 4 to 5 years ago, when I made a video about the W, I called it that this is what is going to be necessary for the WNBA to reach new heights, or the heights that they want to reach. It is going to take one player that a very big mass of people were going to latch to. And Caitlin Clark has just been that, period, point blank. Not to take away credit from other players who have also contributed to the game, but come on, bro. Let's be serious for once.
Drawing in more fans, viewers, money than ever before. But it hasn't come without harsh criticism. Some of it targeted at the disproportionate admiration and attention being given to just one player. And some of this criticism claiming she simply isn't nearly as dominant as we are led to believe. A product of the sports media machine pushing their golden child. Is Caitlin Clark really as good as advertised? Or have her talents been overblown for the sake of the WNBA and the future of women's basketball?
I think depending on who you talk to, they definitely overblow it. But that person probably doesn't watch basketball, period, and they're trying to push something else. I think what Caitlin Clark was advertised as going into the W was a transcendent figure that would put eyes on the game, specifically the league of the WNBA, that it's just never had before. This was a player that averaged 25 to 30 points a game, along with 8 to 9 assists and 6 to 7 rebounds, shooting Damian Lillard, Steph Curry logo bomb threes. Now going into the W, which many people believe is the highest level of competition when it comes to women's basketball, I don't think a lot of people, maybe certain people, but again, those people are pushing some nasty shit or just don't know what they're talking about. But a lot of people believe Caitlin was going to be a great rookie, just not dominant out the gate. Now, the discussion about what dominance is in the W has been a really big one because of Cheryl Swoops. But people expected growing pains. People expected not college numbers in the W. And I think if you look at all the metrics out there, and if you just watch her play regularly in her rookie season, you can clearly tell that she already is one of the top players in the WNBA, period. If you think she's top 5, if you think, she's top 3 already, that's definitely the debate. But being in that conversation in your rookie year already establishes you as one of the most special rookies to ever grace a basketball court, period. I ain't gonna lie.
On April 7th of this year, the women of the NCAA Basketball Championship accomplished something completely unprecedented. Throughout the game, they drew in nearly 19 million viewers, a number that shattered every NCAA women's record, exceeded the viewership of any men's tournament game over the last half decade, and even surpassed every single NBA Finals game since 2018. The game was a groundbreaking spectacle, with people who had never even tuned into a single basketball game in their life turning on the TVs to see who would be crowned champions. The majority of this flocking attributed to one player, Caitlin Clark. Her unbelievable range and record-breaking performances proving to be must-watch TV. The true testament of her greatness and impact, all of the doubt and borderline detest that quickly followed her ascent. Some fans and players, both past and present, questioning if her talents would translate to the next level and if the horde of fans she inspired would follow. They did.
They did.
Her WNBA
about to
debut
say.
attracted the most viewers of any WNBA game in the history of ESPN. Indiana's home game attendance jumped from an average of 4,000 fans last season to an average of over 17,000 fans this season, a more than 400% increase in just a single year.
But this is what I'm talking about when it comes to, like, let's be serious about Caitlin Clark's impact. All due respect to Kelsey Mitchell, with all due respect to Aaliyah Boston, Alyssa Smith, and the other players on the Indiana Fever. The increase on average of 10,000 people watching and paying to see Indiana Fever games live. Come on, gang. Okay, let's give it 2, 3, 5% to the other players and just the growth of the WNBA as a whole. The difference is Caitlin Clark, man. Like, come on.
Actions in the Fever's team store jumped over 700%, and WNBA viewership has skyrocketed to levels that even Clark's biggest advocates could not foresee. Game 4 of last year's WNBA Finals drew in more viewers than any WNBA game over the last 2 decades, with 728,000 fans tuning in for the game, living up to the hype as one of the most anticipated games in the history of the league. This season, there were 22 regular season games that eclipsed that mark, 21 of them drawing in over 1 million viewers. Even crazier, 18 of those 22 games featured Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. But the most revealing evidence of the now dubbed Caitlin Clark effect is the fact that WNBA viewership has nearly caught up with NBA viewership in 2024. On ESPN, NBA games averaged 1.56 million viewers this past season. WNBA games averaged 1.2 million viewers, a number that was inconceivable just a couple years ago.
I think this is the first time I've seen actual numbers to back it up. And I know some of y'all are gonna spin it to see the NBA has a problem, which honestly is a conversation for another day. But I think it is great that so many people are now watching women's basketball. I do think we'll look back on this and ultimately just say it was a net positive for women's sports as a whole. Definitely didn't come with its road bumps, but that's what net positive is that the pros do outweigh the cons at the end of the day.
Caitlin Clark's soaring popularity has been a point of contention for many fans of the WNBA, frustrated that in a league that is bursting with talent right now, it's all just being overlooked for the poster child of women's basketball. Do Caitlin's abilities actually warrant the hype? In just her rookie season, Caitlin broke over a dozen league and franchise records, including the WNBA's single-season assist record. She set the record for the most assists in a single game. She received the most All-Star votes of any player in WNBA history, set a new league record for double-doubles by a guard in a single season, scored the most points of any rookie in league history, and became the first rookie in WNBA history to put up a triple-double. Just this past week, it was announced that Caitlin made first-team All-WNBA, which makes her the first rookie to make first-team All-League since Candace Parker did it 16 years ago. Turns out those awe-inspiring performances from her days in college did in fact translate to the pros. Because even against the best defense in the world, she is pretty much an offensive cheat code. Throughout her rookie season, with points and assists, Clark generated 45.2% of all points produced by the Indiana Fever. For perspective, she has a larger offensive load than every single player in the NBA last season outside of Luka Doncic. And she's a rookie. But to really understand Caitlin's unparalleled offensive prowess, here are the 200 most productive offensive seasons in WNBA history on a scale of points generated per game. And among these seasons, you'll find the greatest players in the league's history. Lisa Leslie, Tamika Catchings, Cheryl Swoops, Candace Parker, and Angel McCoughtry have tons of seasons littered throughout this chart. Climb towards the top and you'll find seasons from Asia Wilson and Cynthia Cooper. But with 4 of the top 10 most productive offensive seasons in WNBA history is Diana Taurasi, her 2006 campaign being the best of them all, producing 33.9 points per game. And then there's Caitlin Clark, who is already the most potent offensive player in the history of the WNBA in her rookie season. Women's hoops has never seen a player like this. And as absurd as her numbers are, how she puts up these numbers is just as incredible. Here are the players who attempt the longest three-pointers on average in the NBA last season, with Trae Young leading the league with the deepest three-point attempts with an average distance of 27.94 feet, and Damian Lillard and Stephen Curry just a shade closer. Despite it still being worth the same amount of points, the longest shooters in the NBA are stepping 4 feet outside the three-point line on their attempts. But even amongst the deepest shooters in the world, Caitlin Clark is on her own island, because throughout the 2024 regular season, her average three-point distance was 28.1 feet, which is not only further than any player in the NBA and in the WNBA, it is a whopping 6 feet out from the WNBA three-point line. Has Caitlin Clark been worth all the attention and hype that has engulfed her over the last 2 years? Yeah, I'd say so. She didn't just have a successful rookie season. She had one of the best rookie seasons in recent basketball history. And this isn't just to her benefit, but the benefit of the entire WNBA. Because the seismic boost in the WNBA's popularity this season is not limited to those turning on the games to see what she'll do next. It can also be found in the fans actually showing up to the games.
Let me tell you right now, as a person who went to Caitlin Clark's first playoff game in Connecticut, that motion is different. The closest thing I've seen to a road team taking over the crowd, low-key, New York last season when New York fans went to Philly. And outside of that, I would say like peak Steph Curry fandom. When it was just known, especially for bad teams, that people are going to those games to watch Stephen Curry play. But a conversation we've definitely been having on the Let's Keep It a Buck podcast throughout this whole year is how generational is Caitlin Clark? And I truly do think with her impact on the game of women's basketball, it is LeBron level. It just is. It is Stephen Curry level, which is a high bar, but that's just how crazy it's been. To be the main factor in raising the WNBA from being not even close to NBA ratings to competing with NBA ratings is insane. It just is.
It's actually showing up to the games. Looking at a chart of the average attendance of WNBA games since the inception of the league in 1997 will tell you a story of a league that has seen their fair share of good days and bad ones. In 1997, there were only 8 WNBA teams, all with really healthy attendance numbers due to the excitement of a new women's league. The league quickly expanded to 16 teams with a handful of teams emerging as fan favorites, like the Washington Mystics, the Phoenix Mercury, and the LA Sparks. But with a massive league expansion came a nearly equal retraction. Many teams folding along the way, such as the Soul, Fire, Miracle, and Sting. But it wasn't until COVID where the league's once steady fan base was wiped out. In 2020, there were no fans in attendance due to COVID protocols, and when play resumed in 2021, attendance was at an all-time low. A number that has been quickly rising in the few years since the pandemic, but has specifically seen an explosion this season, where for the first time, league attendance was higher than the WNBA's inaugural season. The Indiana Fever seeing the highest attendance numbers in league history, nearly selling out every single home game. In a league where attracting the casual fan has been a seemingly insurmountable task, Caitlin Clark has defied the odds by not only drawing in new fans for her and her team, but rising the tides for the entire league. This is completely unprecedented. At least in the WNBA it is. But there was a time when the NBA was facing similar struggles until a pair of players showed up and changed everything. After the success of the Celtics in the 1960s, the NBA's growth in popularity had come to a grinding halt in the 70s. The league had a rampant drug problem. An emerging rival league known as the ABA was picking up steam, and the NBA didn't really have a face to propel the league into the next decade. Jerry West was on his way out. Kareem was incredible, but he didn't really have the personality or charm that fans gravitate towards. Bill Walton's prime was cut short due to injuries, and many fans felt Julius Erving's introduction to the league after leaving the ABA in 1976 was a bit short of what was advertised. Many games were lucky to see even half capacity in attendance. Many teams were losing money. The NBA had fallen to a, quote, second-tier sport behind the NFL, MLB, and NHL. All of this culminating to the point where some networks infamously had NBA Finals games on tape delay in the late 70s due to low ratings. The league was in desperate need of a generational, transcendent superstar. Lucky for them, they got two. Coming off the most popular rivalry in the history of college basketball, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson propelled the league to new heights in the 80s, transforming the NBA from a second-rate league into a behemoth of sports and entertainment.
I think in the last year, there's been a lot of conversations about the face of the NBA moving forward. And I'm not gonna lie, I think the reason why the NBA has had a problem with marketing certain players is because sometimes the machine can only market so much. Like, some of this needs to be done prior to them coming into the league. And I think one thing that the one and done era just hasn't allowed players to do is develop storylines and fan bases going into their NBA career. Larry Bird and Michael Jordan were able to develop legacies and storylines going into their NBA career. I think Caitlin Clark, everything leading up to her getting drafted was so much more crazy than anything the NBA has ever seen since probably LeBron James. All the storylines that happened in college, her games against LSU, her games against USC, the back-to-back national championship trips, the controversy, like all of that. All of that accumulated into so much hype to Caitlin Clark's future WNBA career. The closest thing I could say did that in the NBA, low-key, Lonzo Ball. Next, probably Zion. I'd like to mention Luka and Vic, but there's also the barrier with them being overseas players and people not keeping up with overseas basketball in general. Not trying to make this a whole, hey, the NBA should be the WWE type of thing, but I do find that interesting, like just the effects of the one and done rule and people exiting college earlier nowadays than they used to.
A tandem that many longtime NBA fans say saved the NBA. Now, this isn't to say Caitlin is the second coming of two of the greatest, most important figures in the history of basketball, but her impact on the sport at such an early stage in her career has reached a level reminiscent of some of the most influential athletes of all time relative to their sport. Because her popularity hasn't just affected her, it has had a cascading effect on players across the entire WNBA. Clark has essentially become the gateway to NBA fandom for many people. They come to witness the phenomenon that she is and end up staying once they see just how awesome the league and its players are. Players around the league are signing groundbreaking endorsement deals. Teams now have their own planes and new facilities. Many WNBA players have become household names, some of the most recognizable figures in sports today. There is real, genuine discourse about the games and the players right now that exists beyond the diehard fans. Conversations about the WNBA are now no longer about the legitimacy of the league itself, but instead about its players, records being broken, rivalries, the playoffs, title hopes, the draft, and up-and-coming prospects. It's understandable that Caitlin's
I ain't gonna lie, I'm a little bit disappointed in Jimmy right now. Maybe he'll explain it in the last, minute of this video, but he just ignored a really big elephant in the room. The conversations have not, unfortunately, been just all basketball. The most annoying part about Caitlin Clark's rookie season to me has been the abundant amount of fans and honestly media members as well that have pretended to care about her rookie season and the WNBA as a whole as a shield to get their nasty political takes off on both sides of the aisle. I ain't gonna lie. And I'm gonna just keep it a whole stack. It's been more prevalent on one side of the aisle more than the other. And I'm gonna leave it up to you to assume which side of the aisle I'm talking about. They have used Caitlin Clark's impact and the discourse around the WNBA as a jumping board to get some nasty political takes off when they know for a fact that they're only keeping up with the W in order to push this nasty ass propaganda that they have. These are the same people that only watch Fever games and nothing else. And even then, they may just catch highlights or the controversial play of the day where Caitlin Clark got roughly fouled when it was just a rough foul and nothing else. It's just annoying because when you look at what Caitlin Clark herself has actually said or not said, bro, she's just been chilling, just wanting to play basketball, minding her own goddamn business. She likes to trash talk herself, but that gets turned into something else that's nasty. A lot of this just reminds me about like grown-ass men complaining about the casting of The Little Mermaid. Like, bro, you are not about to watch The Little Mermaid for real. Why are you acting like you care? To all the complaining about the new Assassin's Creed game having a black samurai and everyone just becoming experts on Japanese culture all of a sudden, my thing is just stop acting like y'all care, bro. Y'all don't care about this.
Explosion in popularity has caused a lot of tension. Why is she getting all the attention when there's tons of great players around the league doing great things? The answer to that question? Well, it depends on who you ask. But there's no denying the widespread impact Clark has made on the league in just a single season. For years, players in the WNBA pushed for people to give their talents and their skills and the product a chance. And in record numbers, people finally are. Now, what it took to get them to tune in may not be the most ideal circumstance, where for many casual fans, one player is overshadowing the vast majority of an entire league, but it's 1,000 steps in the right direction. Whether the Caitlin Clark effect will have a lasting impact on the league and retain these new viewers and fans and continue to draw in more in the future is something that only time will tell. But one season in, and she is on a path to being one of the very few truly game-changing athletes of her generation. And yes, she's got all the talent to back it up.
Shout out to Jimmy for the video. If there's one thing that this definitely proved to me, if you ask me, would I rather have 5 superstars or 1 megastar? Give me that 1 megastar in any area of life, to be honest with you.